The rift tore open in the space between worlds, a screaming wound of multiversal static. Through it tumbled a mass of living tar, the Venom Symbiote, severed from its host, screaming in silent agony. It had been fighting Carnage on the streets of San Francisco when the reality quake hit. Now it fell through eternal cold, its form unraveling, its consciousness fraying. It crashed not on Earth, but on the black sand shores of Mustafar. The heat was its first sensation in this new reality, a searing volcanic agony that made its liquid form boil. It screamed again, a psychic shriek that echoed through the Force. The sound made lava flows shudder. It pulled itself across the ash, a wounded animal searching for shelter, for a host, for anything to anchor it against the dying. It found a cave, and in the cave, it found the dead. A battle had happened here recently. The bodies of a Jedi Knight and 2 Sith acolytes lay scattered, their conflict frozen in final poses. The symbiote sensed the lingering psychic echoes, rage, fear, determination. But stronger than these was the pulsing energy coming from the center of the cave. A lightsaber, not just any lightsaber, a Sith blade, its crimson crystal still humming with trapped dark side energy. Its owner, the Sith acolyte who wielded it, lay dead beside it, his neck snapped by a force push. The symbiote hesitated. It had bonded with humans, with aliens, with creatures of flesh and blood, never with metal and crystal. But this weapon, it sang. It radiated power, and the symbiote was dying. With a desperate lunge, it enveloped the lightsaber. The fusion was instantaneous. The symbiote's amorphous black form wrapped around the hilt, seeping into the casing, penetrating to the heart of the weapon where the Kyber crystal bled. 2 forms of darkness met. One biological, one metaphysical, and something new was born. The cave trembled. Ash fell from the ceiling. The dead Sith acolyte's hand twitched as residual dark side energy was sucked from his corpse into the new fusion. The lightsaber rose from the ground, suspended in a cocoon of black biomass. The symbiote reshaped itself around the hilt, forming a crude, elongated body. A serpent made of shifting tar, with the lightsaber as its spine and head. Red eyes opened in the darkness above the emitter. It spoke with a voice that was both the symbiote's guttural growl and the Kyber crystal's psychic scream. "We are." It flecked. The black body extended, forming tendrils that whipped through the air, cutting stone with the dark side energy they carried. It was learning. The Kyber crystal gave it access to the Force. Not as a living being would channel it, but as a weapon would contain it. The symbiote gave the crystal mobility, hunger, and a mind. It named itself Vexis, Venom Kyber Symbiote. It needed to feed, not on brains or flesh, but on energy, on emotion, on the Force itself. It slithered from the cave into Mustafar's hellscape. The first living thing it encountered was a stray lava flea, a dog-sized insectoid creature scuttling across the rocks. Vexis struck. A black tendril shot out, impaling the creature. Instead of consuming its body, Vexis drained its life force, its primal fear. The lava flea crumbled to ash. Vexis grew larger, more solid, more. It moved toward the glow of an Imperial mining outpost on the horizon. Outpost K7 was a refueling station for lava miners. 23 personnel, mostly droids, with a human overseer named Kyle. He was in the comms room when the alarms went off. Perimeter breach. Unknown life form. The security feed showed a moving shadow, a serpentine shape with a glowing red core. Kale grabbed his blaster. "What in the 7 hells is that?" He didn't get an answer. The main door melted, not from heat, from corrosive black acid. Vexis flowed into the room, a tide of living darkness. The stormtroopers fired. Blaster bolts passed through the black mass harmlessly. Vexis wasn't solid. It was liquid shadow. It enveloped the first trooper. The man screamed as the symbiote didn't eat his flesh. It ate his fear, his anger, his very will to live. He collapsed, empty, a breathing husk. Kyle ran for the emergency shuttle. He was almost there when a black tendril wrapped around his ankle. He fell, staring up at the nightmare. The symbiote's red eyes bored into his. "We are hungry. We are alone." Kyle's survival instinct was strong. So was his will. The symbiote sensed it. This one could be useful. Instead of draining him, it offered him a choice. Bond with us, become more, or become nothing. Terrified, desperate, Kale reached out. The symbiote flowed up his arm, covering his body, but something was different. The lightsaber, Vexis's core, remained separate. It floated beside him, connected to the black mass on his body by a cord of living darkness. Kale's eyes turned white. Black veins crawled across his skin. He felt power, immense, terrifying power. He could feel the emotions of everyone in the outpost. Their fear was a banquet. He raised a hand. The floating lightsaber flew to his grip. When he ignited it, the blade was no longer pure crimson. It was black with red cracks like cooling lava, and it dripped with corrosive shadow. We are Vexis, and we are hungry. The massacre lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, 22 drained corpses lay scattered. Kyle Vexis stood in the center, bigger, stronger. The symbiote had learned to use the host's knowledge. Kyle knew about the larger Imperial garrison 50 kilometers north. He knew about the shipments of Kyber crystals that passed through Mustafar for the Death Star project. And he knew about the dark presence that ruled this planet. There is a king here, a lord of rage. We will feast on him. Darth Vader felt the disturbance from his fortress. It wasn't just another creature. It was a wound in the Force itself, something that consumed the dark side rather than channeled it. He dispatched a probe droid to the outpost. The footage it returned was illuminating. A humanoid figure clad in living black armor, wielding a corrupted lightsaber, moving with impossible speed. The figure didn't just kill the stormtroopers. It seemed to drink their very essence, leaving them as empty shells. And the weapon, it bled darkness in a way Vader had never seen. Vader's own Kyber crystal, locked in his saber, seemed to resonate with distant pain. This weapon must be studied, and this power harnessed. He took his personal shuttle. He found Kale Vexis at the edge of a lava river, testing its abilities. The host was cutting through boulders with tendrils of pure shadow, each strike leaving behind sizzling, corrosive residue. Vader landed, stepped out. The heat meant nothing to him. Kale Vexis turned. The white eyes narrowed. The king arrives. I am no king, Vader said, his respirator cycling. I am your end, unless you serve. The symbiote within Kale recoiled at the voice. It sensed immense power. Power laced with agony, with hatred, with a darkness deeper than any it had tasted. This one could be the ultimate host. We will serve from within. Kale Vexis attacked. The corrupted lightsaber blade extended into a whip of black-red energy, snapping toward Vader's head. Vader ignited his own saber, blocking. The collision didn't produce the usual crackle of plasma. It produced a sound like tearing souls. Vader pushed back with the Force. Kale Vexis skidded but held its ground, anchored by tendrils drilled into the rock. Impressive, Vader admitted. He used a Force choke. Kale gasped, but the symbiote reacted. It extended tendrils from his throat, prying the invisible grip away. It was learning to counteract Force abilities. Vader switched tactics. He unleashed a wave of pure dark side energy, not to attack, but to dominate. The symbiote shuddered. This was its language. This was what it fed on. But Vader's darkness was too concentrated, too controlled. It was like trying to drink from a fire hose. The symbiote did something unexpected. It abandoned Kyle. The host's body collapsed, empty. The black mass flowed across the ground, a liquid predator, and launched itself at Vader. It hit his chest plate, began to seep into the seams of his armor. Such pain, such rage. Let us in, let us heal you. Vader felt it, a foreign presence trying to worm into his mind, into his shattered body. It whispered promises. We can regrow your limbs. We can repair your lungs. We can make you whole. All you have to do is let go. For one terrible second, Vader was tempted. Then his will, forged in the fires of Mustafar, tempered by betrayal, slammed down like a vault door. No! He channeled every ounce of his hatred, his pain, his power, and directed it inward. The dark side erupted from him in a psychic explosion. The symbiote was blasted off his armor, screaming. It hadn't just been rejected, it had been burned by the intensity of Vader's spirit. It fled, a slick of black oil racing across the lava fields, leaving the corrupted lightsaber behind. Vader looked at the weapon. It lay, humming on the ground, its blade retracted, the black symbiote residue still clinging to it. He reached out with the Force. The crystal inside screamed at him, a chorus of consumed voices. He picked it up. The metal was warm, alive. He would bring this to his master. Emperor Palpatine examined the weapon in his private laboratory on the Executor. He didn't touch it. He observed. "Fascinating," he whispered. "A parasitic life form merged with a focusing crystal. It doesn't just channel the dark side. It metabolizes it." He had watched Vader's footage. He had seen how the creature resisted Force attacks, how it fed on emotion. This was not a weapon, it was a concept. The perfect Sith weapon. One that grew stronger with every enemy it defeated, that fed on the very energy of its victims. He wanted it, but controlled, contained. He ordered his scientists to experiment. They tried to separate the symbiote from the crystal. They failed. The bond was molecular. They tried to bond it with other hosts, prisoners, droids, animals. Each time, the symbiote overwhelmed the host within minutes, turning them into ravenous monsters that had to be destroyed. The problem was the crystal. The Kyber was a Sith crystal, bleeding with dark side energy. It amplified the symbiote's hunger, its aggression. It made the fusion unstable. Palpatine saw the solution. He needed a purer crystal, one not yet corrupted. And he needed a stronger vessel. He knew where to find both. On the planet Lothal, there was a Jedi temple with a pure Kyber crystal at its heart. And on the same planet, there was a group of rebels, including a particularly strong-willed young man. He would have his agents acquire the crystal, and he would have the boy brought to him. Meanwhile, the original Vexis, the symbiote that had fled, was reforming. It had been wounded by Vader's rejection, but it was learning. It found a new host in the Mustafar wastes, a native Mustafarian, a being of rock and fire. The fusion was painful, but it worked. The symbiote gained heat resistance, a tougher form, and it remembered the taste of Vader's power. It wanted more. It began moving toward civilization, following the scent of Kyber, of Force sensitives, of fear. The rebels on Lothal, Ezra Bridger, Kanan Jarrus, and their crew intercepted an Imperial transmission about Project Vexis. They didn't understand most of it, but they understood Kyber Crystal and Jedi Temple. They raced to protect the temple. They were too late. The Empire had already extracted the pure heart of the mountain crystal, but the rebels managed to ambush the transport. In the firefight, the crystal case was damaged. The pure Kyber crystal, glowing with gentle light, rolled free. The Vexis symbiote, drawn to the energy, struck. It had been stalking the Imperial convoy for days. It abandoned its Mustafarian host and enveloped the pure crystal. The effect was catastrophic. The symbiote, used to the screaming pain of a Sith crystal, was flooded with light, with peace, with serenity. The two energies warred inside it. The symbiote went mad with contradiction. Its form writhed, shifting between black tar and glowing white light. We are confused. It was vulnerable. Darth Vader arrived, sent by the Emperor to retrieve the specimen. He saw the unstable fusion and recognized an opportunity. If he could bond with the symbiote now, in this confused state, he might be able to dominate it completely. To create the ultimate weapon, a dark side entity tempered by light, controllable, unstoppable. He approached. The symbiote recoiled, then reached for him. It remembered him. It wanted him. But Ezra Bridger saw what was happening. He felt the conflict in the Force, the agony of the pure crystal being corrupted. He remembered his training. The Force was about balance, not light eradicating dark, or dark consuming light, but harmony. He did something reckless. He reached out with the Force, not to attack, but to connect. He touched the symbiote's mind. He showed it memories of friendship, of sacrifice, of choosing to protect rather than consume. He showed it what the light side truly meant, not weakness, but strength in compassion. The symbiote hesitated. The pure crystal's voice grew stronger within it. Vader seized the moment. He used the Force to rip the symbiote crystal fusion toward him. It wrapped around his arm, began to crawl up toward his chest. But the symbiote was divided now. Part of it wanted Vader's power. Part of it remembered Ezra's light. Inside Vader's mind, a war erupted. The symbiote's hunger, the pure crystal's serenity, Vader's own boundless rage, three forces tearing at each other. Vader roared, a sound of pure agony, his systems overloaded. Sparks flew from his chest panel. He fell to his knees, clutching his helmet. The symbiote, unable to handle the triad of conflicting wills, did the only thing it could to survive. It fissioned. With a sound like tearing reality, the black mass split. One half remained wrapped around the pure Kyber crystal, glowing with soft white light. The other half, smaller, darker, clung to a shard of the original Sith crystal, pulsing with red hatred. Two entities, one light, one dark. The light symbiote, now calm, slid toward Ezra. It didn't attack. It offered itself, a weapon of protection, not consumption. The dark symbiote, enraged at being diminished, shot toward Vader's fallen lightsaber and merged with it completely. The weapon flew to Vader's hand. When he ignited it, the blade was pure, solid black, a slit in reality that drank light. Vader stood. He looked at the black blade. He looked at Ezra, now holding a white, glowing lightsaber wrapped in benevolent symbiote flesh. Balance. The Emperor's voice crackled over the comm. "Lord Vader, bring me both specimens." Vader looked at the white blade, at the boy holding it. He remembered the symbiote's offer, "We can make you whole." He made a choice. He turned off his comm. He looked at Ezra. "Leave this planet now." Then he turned and walked away, the black lightsaber in his hand, the dark symbiote whispering promises of power in his mind. Ezra escaped with the light symbiote. He would call it Lux, the living lightsaber, a weapon that could feel, that could choose, that could protect. And somewhere in the depths of space, Darth Vader examined his new blade. The symbiote whispered, "Together, we can kill even the Emperor." Vader's respirator cycled. He looked at his reflection in the viewport. For the first time in years, he saw not a machine, but a man wrapped in living darkness. A man with a choice. The fusion was complete. The war was just beginning. The bond is forged. The symbiote has found its ultimate weapon. But this is only the first chapter. Subscribe to the Infinite Galaxy Multiverse right now. Hit the bell, because you need to see what happens when Vader's new blade meets the Emperor's lightning, when Ezra Bridger wields the living light of Lux against the coming darkness, and when a certain web-slinger from another universe feels the pull of the symbiote's cry across the stars. The next fusion will be even more explosive. Be here for it.